Dear dancers, probably you heard about my name or found my name in the old vintage ballet books. Jean-Pierre Alexandre Pribilo, the administrator of Ballet International, has given me the opportunity to share my story, my dance career with you all. My name Marie Taglioni, Comtesse de Voisin. I was a Swedish-born ballet dancer of the Romantic ballet era. I was partially from Italian descent and a central figure in the history of European dance. I spent most of my life in the Austrian Empire and France. I was born on April 23, 1804, in Stockholm, Sweden. My father Filippo Taglioni was my ballet teacher and my mother Sophie Karsten. My grandchildren were Auguste Gilbert de Voisin and Prince Alexei Alexandrovich Trubetskoy. I represent one of the most transformative figures in the history of dance, best known as the original sylphide and the ballerina who defined the Romantic era of ballet. I fundamentally changed how ballet was performed, moving it away from the athletic, showy style of the 18th century toward a style focused on emotion, spirituality, and weightlessness. Here is an overview of my influence, style, and legacy. I was not a natural dancer by the standards of my time, but I had long arms, a short torso, and a slightly hunched back. Training. My father, the choreographer Filippo Taglioni, created a rigorous training regimen to disguise my physical flaws. He choreographed movements that required me to hold my poses for extended periods to build strength and developed a style where I rounded my arms and leaned forward slightly. This defect became my signature. The forward lean and soft curved arms gave the illusion of modesty and spirituality, creating a totally new aesthetic that became the standard for the Romantic ballerina. My revolutionizing pointe work, I am often credited as the first ballerina to dance on pointe, though this is technically a half-truth. Apparently dancers before me had risen onto their toes as a circus-style stunt or a brief trick. However, dancers before me had risen onto their toes as a circus-style stunt or a brief trick. I must tell you that my father was one of the most rigorous teacher I ever had. There were days in which I wanted to kill him. He was so tough. Just to tell you that for a plomb or balance exercise, he asked me to stay and hold the position on point and in balance for 20 minutes and more. If was losing my balance as my feet were on pain, I had to repeat it again and again. My dance signature role, La Sylphide, 1832. This ballet, choreographed by my father, is the cornerstone of my legacy. The role, I played a sylphide, a spirit of the air who falls in love with a mortal Scotsman. The impact. The ballet caused a sensation in Paris. It solidified the theme of the unattainable supernatural woman that dominated 19th century ballet. Seen later in Giselle and Swan Lake. The costume. For this role, I wore a bell-shaped white muslin skirt that ended at the calf to show off my footwork. This was the birth of the Romantic tutu, which is still used today. My great rivalry was Fanny Elsler. The ballet world of the mid-19th century was divided into two camps, Taglionis and Elslerites. Marie Taglioni, the Christian dancer, represented spirituality, lightness, purity, and the air. Fanny Elsler, the pagan dancer, an Austrian dancer who represented sensuality, fire, earthiness, and dramatic acting. The rivalry was fierce and fueled ticket sales across Europe, with critics debating which style was superior. The famous Pas de Quatre, 1845. Toward the end of my performing career, I participated in one of the most famous publicity events in ballet history. I performed in London alongside three other greatest ballerinas of the age, Carlotta Grisi, Fanny Carrito, and Lucille Gran. Great stars of dance of my time. I was the senior ballerina, and in the famous lithographs of the event, I am usually depicted in the center, acknowledging my status as the queen of the era. The ballet shoes of my time were totally different from the ballerinas of the modern era. At my time, we had no protection, only wearing the pointe shoes and use our feet, that was it. With pain or without, with blisters or without, you had do it. I was the first to use pointe work as an artistic means of expression. I didn't go up on my toes to show off difficulty. I did it to look like I was skimming the surface of the earth, reinforcing my role as a spirit or fairy. Let me talk about my shoes. It is important to note that I did not have modern, reinforced pointe shoes. I danced in soft satin slippers that were only slightly darned at the tip. I relied entirely on the strength of my toes and ankles, making my feet even more impressive. My pointe shoes were shockingly different from what we see today. In fact, if a modern ballerinas were to try to dance in my shoes, they would likely break the foot immediately. I did not wear the hard boxed shoes used today. I wore soft satin slippers that offered almost no physical support. Here are the specific details of the shoes that launched the era of pointe work. The pointe shoes construction, the darned slipper. Modern pointe shoes have a hard box made of layers of burlap, paper, and glue to encase the toes and a stiff shank sole to support the arch, while my shoes had neither. My shoes instead were made of soft satin with a flexible leather sole identical to the technique slippers students wear in class today. The reinforcement. To give my toes even a tiny bit of protection, me or my cobbler would darn stitch tightly around the tip and sides of the toes. This created a slightly firmer surface than plain fabric, but it was still soft. The fit. I wore my shoes exceptionally tight, like a kid glove to bind the metatarsals together. This compression helped prevent my feet from spreading when I rose onto my toes. The technique. Thanks to my father, I learned what was the meaning, dancing on pain. Because my shoes lacked a rigid box, I could not sit on my shoe or rely on it for balance, reliance on strength. I had to hold my weight entirely with my own toe and ankle muscles. This is why my training was so grueling. My feet had to be strong enough to act as the shoe's support structure. Brief or long balances. This equipment limitation dictated my choreography. I could not perform the sustained balances or multiple pirouettes on point that dancers do today. Instead, I would rise up onto my toes for a fleeting moment to create the illusion of weightlessness, then lower back down. It was about skimming the floor, not balancing on it. The meaning of silent shoes. One major advantage of my soft shoes was the sound or lack thereof. Modern pointe shoes are hard and can sound like a horse galloping on stage if the dancer is not careful. My soft slippers were silent. When I entered the stage in La Sylphide, I appeared to be made of air because there was no clunk when I landed. This silence was crucial to the romantic illusion of being a spirit. Yes, since I passed away up to present time, many decades and centuries have passed away. Photo machine were still not existing, so you shall always find graphic paintings of design or caricature about me. Electric stage lights were not existing. All was done with candles, 1,000 of them during performance, which on stage gave a magic illusion and beauty during ballet of La Sylphide or Giselle. Other times, looking to you all, dear dancers, I really wish to you try at least for once my difficulties of my time, how we used to perform, how we used to do our training. If there was a time machine, it would be so beautiful we could share our love of dance and technique in the same ballet studio all together. But time flows and offers us limits in our life. Due to the Franco-Prussian War 1870-1871, I had retired to a comfortable life, but the economic upheavals caused by the war decimated what remained of my investments. I tried to return to work, but because of these losses, I could not remain retired. I was forced to earn a living again, working in London, teaching ballroom dancing and deportment to society ladies and children, a humble end for a woman who had once been the queen of dance. I spent my final years living with my son Georges-Philippe Gilbert, who took care of me as I was in poverty. I passed away on April 22, 1884 in Marseille, France, place where I closed my eyes and died in poverty far removed from the glamorous lifestyle of my youth. My body was transported from Marseille to Paris at the Cimetière de Montmartre, Paris, France. Yes, a brilliant career, but with a sad end. Well, as you may know, an artist's end can always be sad and never happy. I miss all the applause, I miss the stage atmosphere, I miss all my dance. I wish I could have the possibility to assist to a ballet class in the modern era with new dancers. Probably my dancing style would be outdated, at least for you. But for my time, for our time, it was awesome and was the base of a special style of ballet. Cherish and love your dance as I did and never stop dancing. All my love to all Marie Taglioni.